Andreas Gruber, 63. Stern, deeply disliked by many in the community. He had a harsh personality, rumors of abuse, and a controlling nature. Cecilia Gruber, 72. His wife, quiet and submissive, often overshadowed by Andreas. Victoria Gabriel, 35. Their widowed daughter, mother of two, known for her beauty and strength, but entangled in scandal. Cecilia Jr., 7. Victoria's bright-eyed daughter. Joseph, 2. Victoria's son, whose paternity was heavily debated. Many suspected Andreas, her father. Maria Baumgartner, 44, the maid, who only arrived on the day of the murders. Unsettling signs begin. Andreas Gruber began telling neighbors unsettling stories, strange footprints in the snow. He found tracks coming from the forest to the house, but none leading away. The snow was untouched around it. The visitor had vanished. Missing house key. One of their front door keys had gone missing mysteriously. Muffled footsteps and voices. The family heard footsteps in the attic at night, but could never find anything when they checked. A newspaper appeared. A Munich paper was found inside the house. None of the family subscribed to it, and no one had brought it in. The maid's warning. Their previous maid had left abruptly 6 months earlier, claiming the house was haunted. She was frightened by the same footsteps and noises. Her fears were dismissed at the time, but now, with the new signs, Andreas began locking up tighter than ever. Still, he refused to report anything to the police. On March 31st, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at the farm. She would barely last a single day. One by one, 4 members of the Gruber family were drawn outside to the barn. How? No one knows for sure, but investigators believed the killer may have used a disturbance, perhaps luring each person individually with strange noises or moving the animals to cause a commotion. In order, likely, Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, his wife, Victoria Gabriel Cecilia Jr., the 7-year-old granddaughter. Each was murdered with a mattock, a sharp-bladed farming tool similar to a pickaxe. Blows were delivered to the head with such force that skulls were crushed, and in Victoria's case, her face was caved in beyond recognition. Little Cecilia is believed to have survived the initial attack for several hours, lying in the straw. She had torn out clumps of her own hair, likely from terror and pain. The house murders. After the slaughter in the barn, the killer, or killers, entered the main house. Maria Baumgartner, resting in her room after her long trip, was killed in her bed, her face covered with a sheet. Joseph, 2 years old, was murdered in his crib in Victoria's bedroom, struck in the head with the same weapon. There was no struggle inside, no cries, no resistance. The killer moved with calm precision. Chilling details. The bodies in the barn were stacked, partially covered in hay. The killer remained in the house for several days afterward, feeding livestock, milking cows, eating food from the kitchen, lighting fires in the stove. No valuables were stolen. Money and jewelry were left untouched. Maria Baumgartner, the new maid. Maria had only arrived that day. She was hired after the last maid fled, terrified by stories of whispers and footsteps. That night she settled into the maid's room, her suitcase half unpacked, and lay down in bed. She likely had no idea what had already taken place just meters away in the barn. She was killed in her sleep, struck in the head with the same mattock used on the others. Her face was later found covered with her bedsheet, a chillingly human touch in a night full of horror. Joseph, the youngest victim. Upstairs, 2-year-old Joseph lay sleeping in his crib in Victoria's bedroom. He was the final victim. He, too, was killed with a blow to the head. Investigators believe he died instantly. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood trails, no cries reported by neighbors, nothing. an eerie calm. The house was now silent, but something was off, and it would only become more disturbing later. Despite this gruesome scene, the killer did not leave. He stayed. For days. The signs that something was off. The Grubers were a quiet family, but not reclusive. People noticed their sudden silence. Cazelia Jr. missed school. Unusual. She was punctual. The family failed to attend church on Sunday, which was extremely out of character for Victoria. Mail began piling up. No one answered the postman's knocks. The farm animals could be heard mooing and braying, as if neglected. Yet, smoke was seen rising from the chimney. Food had been eaten from the kitchen, cows had been milked, and the animals fed. Someone was still living at Hinterkaifeck. The mechanic's visit. A local repairman came by on April 3rd to fix a machine in the barn. He knocked, shouted, called out. No answer. But he noticed the barn door opening slightly, as if someone was watching him. He got the distinct feeling he was not alone. Still, he left, unaware of the massacre inside. The bodies are discovered. April 4th, 1922. Finally, a group of concerned neighbors and relatives came together. Led by Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a former suitor of Victoria's and possibly Joseph's father, they forced their way inside. What they found would haunt them forever. In the barn, they discovered 4 bodies buried under hay and straw, stacked in a crude pile. Andreas, Cazelia Sr., Victoria, and little Cazelia Jr. In the house, they found Maria in her blood-soaked bed, Joseph, dead in his crib, covered with Victoria's shawl. Blood was everywhere, but the house was oddly tidy. Plates had been used, food had been prepared, and the livestock was calm. The killer had stayed. Whoever murdered the Grubers had lived among the corpses for 4 days. He had eaten their food, milked their cows, slept in their beds, and vanished without a trace. First clues. The silence of the farm. They knocked. Nothing. Called out. Silence. Even the animals were eerily quiet now, sensing something was wrong. Lorenz, determined and anxious, forced open the barn door. What they found was the beginning of one of Germany's greatest unsolved mysteries. In the barn there, beneath a mound of old hay, were the bodies of 4 people. Andreas Gruber, skull-crushed, face nearly unrecognizable. Cazelia Gruber, wife, also brutally beaten. Victoria Gabriel, her face smashed beyond recognition, her body showing signs of strangulation. Cazelia Jr., the most heartbreaking of all. She had torn her own hair out, her tiny face frozen in terror. The bodies were stacked one on top of the other, like firewood. All had been killed with the same bladed farming tool, a mattock, sharp and heavy. Inside the house. The horror didn't end in the barn. In the maid's room, they found Maria Baumgartner, the newly hired maid, killed in her bed, her face hidden under her sheets. In Victoria's bedroom, little Joseph was found dead in his crib, a blow to the head killing him instantly. His body had been covered with a woman's shawl. The scene was surreal. The house was clean, the cows had been milked, and food had clearly been prepared and eaten. It appeared the killer had been living there, calmly, for days after the murders, among the bodies. Shock and horror. Spread police were called in immediately, and the news swept through Bavaria. The fact that the farm had been operating normally from the outside, with fires burning, animals fed, and chores done, while 6 people lay dead inside, horrified the nation. It wasn't just a murder. It felt like someone had been watching, waiting, and staying. Crime scene chaos. When police arrived from Munich, they were met with a disaster. Not just a crime, but a contaminated scene. Curious villagers had wandered through the farm, even eating food from the kitchen before authorities arrived. Valuable footprints and evidence were trampled or erased. The bodies were moved before proper forensic work was done. In short, the crime scene was a mess from the start. Autopsies in the barn. The coroner, Dr. Johann Baptist Aumiller, conducted autopsies right there in the barn, using only basic tools. Findings: all victims died from massive head trauma caused by a mattock. Victoria may have also been strangled. Cecilia Jr. likely survived for hours, perhaps even overnight, before dying. The killer showed precision and brutality. The skull mystery. The victims' skulls were sent to Munich for further study, even to test for psychic impressions. Yes, paranormal detectives were consulted, but during World War II, the skulls were lost or destroyed, never returned to the family. To this day, the victims rest in graves without their heads. Suspects: many, but no arrests. Several key suspects emerged. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, possibly Joseph's real father, entered the crime scene with unusual calm, knew how to unlock the barn, claimed to help. But many villagers suspected he knew too much. Carl Gabriel Victoria's husband, supposedly killed in World War I. Some theorized he had faked his death, returned to find Joseph wasn't his, and sought revenge. Vagrants or robbers ruled unlikely. No money or valuables were stolen. The former maid had warned of strange sounds months earlier, but she had a solid alibi and no motive. The Gruber family themselves. Could it have been a murder-suicide? This was dismissed. The killer stayed afterward, cared for animals, and clearly intended to escape. The hidden weapon. In 1923, nearly a year later, the murder weapon was found, hidden in the attic of the farmhouse during its demolition. A homemade mattock, crusted in dried blood. Some believe the killer had lived in the attic for days before the murders, watching the family, possibly through small gaps in the woodwork. The final verdict. Cold case. Despite over 100 suspects interviewed, a full reconstruction of the crime years of speculation and reopened investigations, even as late as 2007. He had a key to the house, showed little emotion at the scene, opened doors effortlessly, as if familiar. Theory. He killed the family out of rage or jealousy, possibly after being rejected or threatened by Victoria. Counterpoint. He remained in the area for years and was never charged. 2. Carl Gabriel. The husband. Returned from the dead. Victoria's husband, Carl, was reportedly killed in World War I in 1914, but no body was ever recovered, and some in his unit claimed he might have deserted. Theory. Carl returned to find his wife had a child, possibly not his, and was involved with her own father. Overcome with rage, he committed the murders and vanished. Counterpoint. Many soldiers confirmed Carl's death, and there's no confirmed sighting of him post-war. 3. A stranger in the attic, the hidden drifter. Andreas Gruber reported footsteps in the attic and missing items days before the murders. A newspaper they didn't subscribe to was found inside. Theory. Someone was living secretly in the house, perhaps watching the family and waiting for the right moment. The killer may have remained in the house even after the murders. Supporting detail. The murder weapon was found in the attic during the farm's demolition. The incest motive. A family secret explodes. The relationship between Andreas and Victoria was widely rumored to be incestuous. Both were previously arrested for incest. Andreas served a year in prison. Victoria may have been trying to break away or seek justice. Theory. A family conflict turned deadly, with someone inside or close to the family snapping. 5. Random drifter or bandit. Some theorized that a wandering criminal or vagrant committed the murders. But no valuables were stolen. the killer stayed and cared for the farm afterward. Unlikely, unless it was a mentally disturbed person with farming knowledge. Legacy. The Hinterkaifeck murders have inspired. Books, films, true crime documentaries, even video games and podcasts, the case remains Germany's most famous unsolved murder. The farm today. The original farmhouse was demolished in 1923. A simple memorial shrine marks the spot today, a quiet, somber reminder. The final word? In 2007, German police reopened the files and even trained criminal profilers on the case. They claimed to have a prime suspect, but out of respect for surviving relatives, they never made the name public. The truth may be buried forever, along with the victims. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.